Hello, and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my beautiful wife, Janet, and we are super excited to be streaming live from outside of Hilo, Hawaii. Let me tell you, I can really get used to waking up in January when it's 75 degrees and sunny outside. If you look at our back window over here, you might be able to hear some birds, but if you look out there, I think there's some palm trees and there's a coconut tree that we're looking at right now. We're super excited to be here. For those of you that follow us, we are still on a journey, 50-state tour journey, and Hawaii was the last one. So we have hit all 50 states, United States, and now we have to start deciding which ones we got to go back, which ones we want to go back to, which there's a lot of them. There's a lot of cool states. And I got to tell you that Washington State has a lot of cool things too. But I'm telling you, I'm not missing the winter in Washington State. That is for sure. So now our next goal is to ride a bike on every continent. So we've got two out of the way, North America and South America. We'll hit Australia in May, and got some plans to go over the other continents. Or Antarctica is going to be a doozy. So doing some research on that one as we speak. But today, let's talk about today's podcast. I want to welcome Melissa Fillmore. She is going to be discussing nutrition and exercise and her health journey. For those of you that follow me, you know I have a health journey, and 13 years ago or so, I was obese and 60 some pounds heavier. And I decided I wanted to make some changes, and it was life-changing for me and life-changing for my family. And I like the idea when somebody has a health journey of their own, because some people still ask me, they say, well, it might be easy for you because, you've never been, those that didn't know me, 20 years ago, because you've never been obese. And I'm like, well, I have been fat. So I know how difficult it is. And it's a journey for the rest of my life. I can't go back to my old ways that I did 15 years ago, or I will end up in the same place. So we're going to discuss some of that stuff today with Melissa. And speaking of Melissa, welcome to our show.
Hi there. Hello.
So tell us a little bit. Here's some before and afters of you, 2004, 2011, 2016. So you've got a health journey of your own. So, and now you're a health and fitness coach. So tell us about your health journey.
My background is actually in education, school teacher. I did that for a little while when my kids were little, but I definitely got to the point in my journey where I needed to educate myself and I needed to do something different. So it's probably in my early 30s ish. It's kind of a funny story. I tried for years and years and years. I'd done the whole thing, the yo-yo dieting. My mother was obese. My heaviest was about 210. And I'm 5'2", so that's quite a lot of weight to put on my short little body.
Wow, that is a lot of weight.
Yeah. So, right around 2009, 2010, I went with my now ex-husband. We went to Spokane and we did rock wall climbing, and I loved it. I loved being able to go up the walls, but I really struggled I could do the little bit easier, but I couldn't do the upright and I couldn't do the overhang. And so I came back with a new goal. I wanted to get strong. So I hired a trainer at the time, and he taught me to strength train, and that changed everything. I loved it. It was something I was really good at. I really enjoyed pushing weights around, learned a little bit about how to do it correctly and safely. And about that time, they had an episode or a season of Biggest Loser come on, which I loved at the time. Not so much now that I know the background of it, but it inspired me to really start paying attention to my nutrition. And back in that day, you guys remember the Body Bugs? It was kind of like a Fitbit, but it was a little more detailed. It was a better tool, but I started paying attention to my nutrition. I started keeping track of my steps and how many calories I was burning, calories in, calories out. And I really started to learn about nutrition, and that what we were taught is wrong. So that made probably the biggest difference. I lost about 80 pounds in 9 months. And then I kept working at it. I did start to do a little bit of competing, and I became an athlete at 36. So that's kind of where I went from there. And then becoming a trainer and a wellness coach, I got to the point where I figured if I could do it, anybody could do it. And so my teaching background just helped me want to educate people on what's truth, and how their body really works. And so I ended up being a biologist. Who knew?
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, our goal of this podcast is to educate and empower individuals
Yes.
to take charge of their own health. So you are right at home here. So I'm glad you're on.
Awesome.
80 pounds in 10, did you say 10 months? 9 months?
9 months. 9 months.
I mean, that's congratulations. And that is a lot of weight. And one thing that tells people is, it is possible. And that's really in reality, that's about the perfect loss. That's, what is that? Probably 1.5 pounds a week, 1 pound a week, 1.5 pounds a week, something like that. Probably about 1.7, something like that, pounds a week, which is perfect. And, just so it comes off slowly over 9 months. You're not going to lose 80 pounds in 2 months, and keep it off, especially. So tell us about some of the things you did to lose that weight. Let's talk about strength training first, since that was brought up.
Yes.
So Janet, we talk about strength training all the time on this podcast. What are some things as a woman that you would like to talk about in strength training?
First, go ahead, Janet.
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of myths.
Yes, there is.
And I think that's the biggest thing. People talk about women bulking up and looking abnormal and weird things like that. But there's a lot of importance to it for your overall health. So if you can dive into it, I'd like you to kind of dispel those myths and then kind of the advantages of the strength training for women.
For sure. And I work obviously with a lot of women as well. But what it taught, first of all, I always just thought exercise was exercise, right? You get in there, you do it. I would slink into the gym in my baggy clothes and I do my 30 minutes on the elliptical, and then I slink back out and really get frustrated that my body wasn't changing. And of course I needed to look at, I look at everybody as a formula, their own holistic formula. So there's a lot of variables that are, included in there. But the biggest one is that you got to build muscle. Muscle is a natural fat burner. Most women come to me saying, well, I just don't want to get bulky. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this again. You're not going to get bulky.
It's not going to happen.
It's not. You don't produce enough testosterone to get bulky, and you don't lift heavy enough to get bulky. Even just to have what I have, I eat a lot of calories. Granted, they're clean, whole food. And I did the years lifting pretty healthy. And I am bigger than the average woman, but that was a choice, especially when I chose to compete. But the average woman is absolutely not going to do that. It really comes down to, I love it when women say, I want to get toned. I'm like, okay, what are you going to tone to? If you don't have any muscle, what are you going to tone to? You have to actually have muscle to have shape. And it's going to be, it's amazing. It's fun. And what women miss is that it's not only going to benefit them now. And part of it is strength. Part of it is aesthetics, right? We all want to look better. We all want to feel better. But as we get older, really our independence and our quality of life is going to rely on our ability to have balance, which comes from our core strength. But just being able to take care of ourselves. And that really comes down to having enough muscle in order to do those things. And of course, lifting for size and lifting for strength and lifting for power are all a little bit different. So I'm not out there doing, trying to hit my PRs and all that. I am literally lifting so that I can stay upright, so that I can stay healthy, and so that my body burns my nutrition efficiently.
Absolutely. All of those were great points. Thank you for that, Melissa. Sarcopenia, which basically literally means flesh is sarco, and penia means loss of. It's basically loss of muscle mass over time. And it's a real thing, especially as we get older. And you will never, ever, God willing, you live to be 80 or 90, you will never, ever said, man, I had too much muscle when I was 45 years old. Now, I can also say that there is a problem sometimes with that. There are people that use gear and stuff that get way too big. I don't think it's healthy. There's a lot of argument about that. But if you do it naturally, you cannot build too much muscle mass. And I tell people, I don't care what kind of athlete you are. I'm an endurance mountain bike racer. And I tell people all the time that are cyclists, put on as much upper body mass as you can now, because you will, I know it might not make you as fast on the bike, but you will not regret it when you're 70 years old. And it decreases osteoporosis, decreases because lifting heavy things, bone bearing exercise is what makes your bones strong. And The other thing is too, is, when you talk about day-to-day activities, being strong. I mean, when you think about people that get sick when they're older, what's one of the first things they lose? Like you say, balance, and then they can't walk, and then they literally can't even stand up, without a walker. And if you think about what lifting does, resistance training, working your quads, working squats, things like that. That is a day-to-day thing that you might not know you do every day, but you do. Just getting up off the couch is literally a squat. So if you can put weight on your back and you can squat 20, 50, 100, 200 pounds, whatever it is, then you can stand up and walk.
Right. And I actually have some family experience with that. My grandmother on my father's side, so my dad's mom, both her and her mother in their 80s fell and broke major bones. So my great grandmother broke her hip and my grandmother broke her pelvis. And we all know that, especially at a certain age, after that happens, health tends to go down dramatically, very quickly. And they don't tend to live much longer after that, which is, knowing my family, I'm pretty sure I'm going to live into my 80s. So I really want to make sure that I have a good quality of life and I can take care of myself and not be a burden for my children. But my mother passed away from diabetes. So, or complications of diabetes. I've known for a very long time that diabetes runs in my family. I also know that it is something that we can control with health and nutrition. And so in the end, before she passed away, she had no core strength and was using a walker, and it was very difficult to watch. And of course, knowing what I know as well. And so, I just don't want to have that kind of lifestyle. I don't want to get to the point where my kids have to help me to get up and down.
Right.
I want people, and I work with a lot of older clients as well. And my thought process is, I just need to keep you moving. I need to keep you being able to be independent and take care of yourself and have a really good quality of life. And that's really important to me.
Well, there's a point that we also brought up about athletes, and I've had a few women that are very active women, but they've also done a lot of endurance. And when we talk to them, the thing about having your core strength is super important, because that balance issue is going to prevent you from falling. If you can have balance, which lifting and exercises can give you. I mean, you don't have to use a lot of weight to get to that point, but you have to do it consistently to help you with that balance issue. Because I find that even for myself, that is something that you start just kind of losing a little bit unless you force it. You have to work for it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you have to be consistent, because, one of the reasons, so having been a bigger woman, my spine has some issues. I do have a compressed spine. I have scoliosis brought on by, being a bigger woman. So one of the things that I have noticed is, if I'm not diligent about working on my core strength, I start to hurt more. I catch myself, with my posture not being quite as good. So it's, for me, it's all of the above. Yes, I want to have a good quality of life, but I care how I look and feel as well. As women, we should. It is about taking care of ourselves all the way around holistically. So, I do make sure that I'm, even in the times where I'm not feeling well, or things are a little crazy in my life, I'm still making sure that I'm at least doing enough to keep up with what I have. Right? I don't want to go so far backwards that it is a derogatory situation with my health.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, once you build something up, it's a lot easier to maintain than building it. It's kind of like losing weight. It's difficult to lose weight. It's a lot easier to maintain weight. And that's why I think it's important, once you do get to a goal weight, or, some people don't like looking at the scale. So a goal aesthetic, that you stay on track. So whatever your measurement was for you getting to that goal, stay as close to it as possible and keep yourself on top of it. So, because like you say, I went to the yo-yo diets too, 20 some years ago, and, you'd lose 40 pounds and you gain 20 back. And if you just stay within that goal all the time, then it makes it a lot easier. Right. So let's talk nutrition.
Yes.
So one thing, we'll go into some of the detail. Well, I want to start with a question. Because I saw your Instagram, and we'll stream that a little bit later. Oh, let's go ahead and stream it now. And I think that one will come up. That
And a lot of what I do on there is education. I always tell people the education is free. I just charge for the roadmap. But I want people to understand how their body truly works. And there's so much noise out there and so much, you've got no offense to young YouTubers and influencers. You've got a lot of young people that don't really know what it takes to be somebody in your 40s or 50s and have to try to figure out how your body responds. So I that's what my social media is for, is really to educate people. My teaching background just wants so badly to help people understand how things really, truly work.
That's awesome. So, and I agree with you. And a lot of those young new YouTubers, well, obviously they're not, they don't have, 40 years experience in their body.
Right.
But also a lot of them have probably not had a health journey of their own. Some of them have probably, but maybe a lot of them haven't. I think that's what's important. When you share your story or I share my stories, that, that we have been in the boat of not being healthy. So right. I love the one, with all the keto phrase and low carb phrase, and just name it however you want. Right. You're saying don't cut carbs. Well, carbs are bad, Melissa. Carbs are going to kill you. They're just bad, right? So tell us about that.
Well, so my biggest frustration is really, if somebody asks me what's the perfect diet for me, I'm like, the first thing I'm going to say is whichever one you can actually follow. And some people, need less carbs, but the macros, quality matters, right, for everything. And so I think people have the wrong idea that, carbs are causing the problems. No, it's the crap food that's causing the problems. It's the highly ultra processed, all the things. And it's so much of our staple diet here in America. They call it the standard American diet. I'm like, because even now to be optimal, which is how we try to eat at my house, it's tough because it's really difficult to get the foods, the whole foods that are, we do eat a lot of protein at our house, but we really care about where it's processed and how it's raised. So, we do a lot of grass-fed, grass-finished beef. We do a lot of locally grown eggs. We know where those products have been, what they've been fed, and how those have come to the public market. The problem is that so much of what's available is shelf stable, multiple ingredients. Like I said, we've got a lot of not just processed, but highly processed food. So if you're eating a lot of carbs that are multiple ingredients full of sugar or break down into sugar fairly quickly, even things like bread, people say, well, I don't have a sweet tooth. I'm like, yes, but honey, if you're eating bread, you are eating sugar. It immediately turns to sugar in your system and hits your bloodstream. So it's about eating the right foods that contain vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. So things like, sweet potatoes, yams, potatoes, vegetables. All vegetables are technically a carb. Fruits, but again, it's everybody's different. I can't recommend just do this. If I'm going to make blanket statements, it's going to be eat as clean and whole and unprocessed as you possibly can, because those foods will provide the nutrients, which tells your body, hey, I'm full. I don't really need any more of that. I've gotten what I need out of the food that you've eaten today.
That's a really good point about feeling full, because, processed foods, you get that rush of sugar immediately in your body and your digestive system. And then the rest just kind of goes right through. And, half an hour later, you're hungry again. So it spikes your sugar and it doesn't really help your overall nutrient need.
Right.
Go ahead.
Not just that, but, for a lot of people, are you hungry or are you really hungry? And how to be able to tell the difference from that is what will actually make you not hungry anymore. Is it vegetables? Because when I'm truly physically hungry, I'll eat cucumbers and things, to kind of calm my stomach down. But if I want comfort food and sugar, and because I have a sweet tooth, I do, and all those things that are going to, like you said, raise my blood sugar really quickly, but then drop me again, I know that I'm mentally or phantom hunger. So you're paying attention to that as well.
Well, one thing that we say, and this is not original to me, a doctor actually taught me this. If it doesn't rot, don't eat it.
Yes.
And that's kind of what a whole food is.
I like it.
And I will tell you, I've tracked my calories before. I stopped doing it about a year ago because I think I think it's a very good tool and it works for some people. And one of the things is that, if you're being really, really strict about it and you're weighing your food, it really is an eye opener about how many calories you're truly eating. And one thing is somebody that's having a hard time losing weight. Well, I'm only eating 1,500 calories a day. And I'm like, are you?
Yeah.
Are you really tracking your calories? Well, start weighing your food. And then next thing you know, that spoonful of peanut butter was actually 3 servings of peanut butter.
Yes. Exactly. My son actually did that once. My son was, putting it on the bread and he's like, yeah, it's 2 tablespoons. And no, it was really 6. So yeah, I think in the beginning, especially when I'm trying to educate people, I do want them to be a little more a little more detailed. I want them to pay attention because you can't manage what you don't track. And you're right. People will tend to eat a lot more than they think they are, the licks and the nibbles and things like that, but also paying attention to how your body responds to the different types of foods. I didn't know that being bloated and having stomach aches all the time was not normal. That's not a normal feeling when you eat. Right. That's your body responding to the foods that you're eating. So paying attention to that, paying attention to what types of food, and even I think people don't understand that the different macronutrients do different things within your system. And by eating them, especially I work with a lot of diabetics, the order that you eat your foods and even whole foods can make a difference. By the way, I like that if it rots. I always say if you can't kill it or grow it, you probably shouldn't be eating it. But
that's a good one, yeah.
Right. But I think that people don't realize that, because the different macronutrients do different things, and because your body has to work a little harder to break down, say, the protein. For my diabetics, I want them to eat things in a specific order because I want them to get enough protein. I want them to save the carbs for last. And I want, of course, them to be complex carbohydrates that are going to deliver nutrients and not just empty calories. So I think part of it, I take a lot into consideration when I work with people. Like I said, everybody's their own formula. I start with some basic formulas of my own, but then I watch to see how their body responds. I do ask about their traditions, their likes, is there foods you're allergic to? Are there foods that you prefer to have in your meal plan? Can we work something into that? Because I want them to stick with it. Like you said, it's easier to maintain than to get there in the first place. However, the caveat is that if you get there too fast, you haven't created the habits and the rhythms that you need in order to stay there. So when people say, well, I want to lose 30 pounds in a month, I'm like, okay, well, I am not the coach for you, because that is just, I'm not going to help you with that. Because the longer it takes you to get to where you want to be, the more likely you are to stay there. Because you are trying to undo how many years? I have to undo 3 decades worth of bad habits,
right,
in order to get where I want to go. And I'm not saying I'm immune. I still eat my feelings once in a while, but over the years, I've learned to have better coping skills. I've learned to not carry, those things in the house that I'm prone to eating when I'm not in a good mood. I've done the habit changes in order to eat better, and I just feel better. I just feel better when I eat better. So even like over the holidays, we do eat a little more fun stuff. But I am so ready to go back to my regular, clean, whole eating when I'm done, because I feel better. And the older I get, the more important that is to me.
I agree. And, we'll still, when we're out, especially, because one of the things is, one of the tips that you were kind of mentioned, and I'll just go even a little bit further, is, I have a sweet tooth. I mean, I could eat a box of Oreos. I mean, seriously, I could eat a box of Oreos.
Yeah.
It was in front of me. I could probably not say no. And I would eat a whole box. So we just don't buy that stuff, because if it was in our house, I would eat it. So we try to have healthier snacks in our house, and just try to not have snacks in general. Because, just snacking anything, whether it's nuts or
it can get out of hand.
Next thing you know, half a bag's gone, and that's 500 calories.
And what works for me on, like the sweets is that I try to, number one, make myself earn it. Because there's certain things that I do like, and I don't want people to feel like they have to sacrifice everything, because they won't stay with it. So if I had to never eat chocolate again, we'd probably have a problem. But I do try to make myself earn it. I do have the rule, don't bring it home, because if it's in the house, I probably will eat it. And with my Meals with Melissa, the Facebook Live that I do, that's all up on YouTube as well, I do a lot of things that are alternatives and healthier versions of things that people love to eat. However, I tend to eat super, super clean whole foods until I allow myself whatever that treat is. I love ice cream. It doesn't love me, but I would rather have the full strength option, the real thing, than to try to always have an alternative with a lot of sugar substitutes and things like that. Partially because I know what sugar substitutes do, but also because I want to be able to say, like, no, I ate that ice cream. Like, we went to Portland and I had Salt and Straw. It's my favorite. When we go there, that's what I plan to do. Yeah. It also gives me something to look forward to, so that I don't always feel like, well, I can never eat the good stuff again. I'm also very careful how I say things out loud. So, when you go to the grocery store during the year and the Girl Scout cookies are sitting there and they're all, hey, buy some cookies. My response is always, oh, I am so sorry. I don't eat sugar. Not I can't eat sugar. I don't eat sugar, because that means that I have made that choice to not eat sugar, versus if you tell yourself you can't, it means that you are sacrificing, and there's something, nobody wants to be told what to do. So I'm very careful with how I talk to myself and how I say things out loud, because I'm very, very aware of my subconscious and what it buys into.
Well, and not only that, but add to this, because when you see them selling Girl Scout cookies or Krispy Kremes. I used to love Krispy Kremes.
Yeah.
I would probably throw up now if I smelled one. But I literally could eat a dozen of them. I mean, seriously, I used to be able to. And those are typically something for a fundraiser. Hey, buy a box of Krispy Kreme for $10. It's like, hey, here's your $10. You keep the donuts. Yep. And I've done that. Cookies. Here's your $20. You keep the cookies and sell them to somebody or give them to somebody, whatever.
Well, I think the difference here is what we're talking about is we're prepared.
Is what?
Because we're prepared for the challenge.
Right. You
have a plan in place, and you decided, when this happens, this is how I'm going to address it, because we've all been there where you've got friends. Oh, come on. It's and even at work, I've had, oh, you need to do this. Come on. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to, because I've made that decision. Like you said, it's not a feeling. It's a choice that you've made a decision on, and how we're going to respond to it. And I think that that's really important, that, and then when you have responded and did it in the correct way, that you decided to do it, you need to celebrate that a little bit, because the more that we give ourselves kudos for making the right choices, it feels better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's, it goes even further with, okay, tell me what you just said again. I had a whole thing to talk about.
Just be prepared, be prepared to say no. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So, I mean, part of it is, okay, so when my clients come to me and they're like, dude, I fell off the wagon, I never slap hands. I don't tell people that, good job, you didn't do very well. I don't do that, because I first of all, I realize we all do that, including myself. So my first question is always, was it worth it? Because sometimes it is. Was it worth it? So if like I haven't had a donut in a year, like I just decided I was there, like I like the Spud Nuts and I was there and I wanted one. Great, let's get back on track. Most of the time, what I'm going to hear is, I just really struggle with it. I didn't mean to fall off the wagon. It just, they had it at work and I ate it. I'm like, that's okay. Let's talk about why you were triggered, what led you to do it, and how can we be more prepared next time? Because really, success in this type of goal is more about being prepared, right? It's kind of the Boy Scout motto, be prepared. Whether that means bringing food with you, whether that means eating all your food for the day so you don't want to snack at night, whether that means going online and looking at the menu for the store that you're going out, or the restaurant that you're going with your girlfriends to, and picking something to eat already, so that when you get there, you're going, wow, the nachos sound amazing, right? I always want to help pick the restaurant. There's certain places that I actually won't eat. So, if somebody says, let's go out to eat, I give them 3 or 4 options. I know what I can or want to have there. And it makes it a whole lot easier. And I don't have to use willpower, which we all know just does not work.
Right. One thing you mentioned, backing up a little bit, and I want to reiterate this. You've kind of mentioned it a couple of times, but I just want to reiterate how important it is for an individualized diet, because something doesn't work. There are carnivore people out there, and there are keto people out there, and they will say that that's the only thing that works, and that is it depends on the person. One of the things I liked what you mentioned is, you say you help a lot of diabetics, and one of the things about diabetics is, we talk about eating whole foods. Well, and some diabetics don't know this, but they'll think, well, fruits and vegetables are healthy. No, if you're a diabetic, I would say no to all fruit, almost all fruit. I would say no until your diabetes is well under control and you're off medications. That's what I would tell them, because fruit in general is just bad for diabetics, because most of it has such a high glycemic index. There are some good things, maybe some berries and stuff, but it's just easier to say, you know what, don't eat fruit. And I know that there's a lot of doctors that don't understand that or know that or educate them about that. And of course you see that, and we see it all the time as funders. I mean, we have failed. The healthcare system has failed. Diabetics.
Agreed.
So hard.
Agreed.
I mean, I had a diabetic. I did a post the other day, and I had a a wife of a diabetic that said her husband was a diabetic, and it doesn't matter what he eats. That's not important. He's going to have insulin the rest of his life, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Yep.
And I said, now wait a minute. It doesn't matter what he eats. Does he use more insulin when he eats more carbs?
Right.
Does he use less insulin when he doesn't eat? Oh, okay. Then it doesn't matter what you eat. I mean, come on, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. But I will tell you, I guarantee you it's because the healthcare system is not educating them well at all. It's like, just use more insulin. If your blood sugar goes up, use more insulin. That's the answer. It's not controlled by your diet. I think it's a dietary problem.
I think part of it too is that our doctors have not been well educated about how it really works. They just think, okay, well, there's more sugar in the bloodstream. They need more insulin. I'm like, but it's just doing more damage. So unfortunately, doctors don't get very much in the way of health and nutrition education. I know because I've worked with quite a few, and they don't really teach any education on diabetes and how it works, or cancer. I'm flabbergasted when I work with people who are survivors of cancer, because they're just not educated on how nutrition plays such a huge role in their recovery and here on out. So teaching them how their body really works is a good part of it. That's why I like to educate, not just tell people what to do. But nutrition is the biggest part of it. The order that we eat the foods can make a huge difference. And I'm not saying that people can't eat the fruit, but they got to know what it does to their blood sugar. They got to be able to track that. I like the continuous blood glucose monitors now, because you can actually see in real time virtually how it's affecting your body. So, in order for that there's still nutrients and things in vegetables and fruits. But I agree, it's not a free for all. They're not necessarily for you, especially in the beginning when you're trying to get control of your blood sugar. But in the beginning, my goal is to get their blood sugar from doing this, right? Even type 1. I've worked with type 1 as well, to just doing maybe this, right? And learning how their body works, knowing that if you build more muscle, it will help accept the glucose, and so it has somewhere to go versus just trying to shove it in cells that are already full. We're just not taught correctly. I think that's my biggest frustration. And you guys are probably, we're all about, I'm assuming, the same generation. The food pyramid from back in our day is upside down, right? Yeah. So how is it that, there's a reason why our country has become completely metabolically unhealthy. 88% of our country is metabolically unhealthy. That is unacceptable to me. So I'm frustrated that not only we're not given the right tools, we're not given the right education, and then our government supports big food industries which are trying to addict us to their food in the first place. So I'm so passionate about it because it's affected me, it's affected my family, and I care about the world at large. I care about humanity. I care about people, and to me, everyone's important. I believe everybody should have the same opportunity to be healthy. So educating them is a big part of what I do.
Well, I find it really fascinating that if you take your pet in, your vet is going to talk to you about nutrition and food, especially if there's some kind of problem. And, they talk about weight and, what are you feeding them? And that has become almost a taboo that we've done in our country, that we can't say that we're overweight because you're shaming somebody, right? Well, no, that's not true. What you're saying is you have a problem that we need to address so you can live a life that's good. I mean, tell me how many diabetics you've seen that, what happens to them is tragic if they're not taught how to handle it. And, the sad thing about the medical field is, and we should know this, but we don't, is that the more insulin you give somebody, the more resistant they become to it. You put fuel on a fire. You just made it worse. And, that is totally coming down to the fact that we are choosing, and I say it strongly because we're choosing to be ignorant about it. We have had enough people on insulin throughout the century to be able to say, I keep giving this person more and more and more. And this is the problem it continues to have. And so, gave him so much more. So let's throw some more carbs at him. And it's like,
and even type 1s, you mentioned you take care of type 1, you educate type 1s also. And I don't know how many times I've gotten into arguments with people about type 1, type 2, and they say, I don't know what I'm talking about because, type 1s, it doesn't matter what they eat. It's like, it still does. And the more insulin, there are type 1 diabetics that we turn into type 2 diabetics, and it's tragic. And in general, the less carbs a diabetic can eat, the better.
Right.
Now, if they're an athlete and they're burning the carbs, then by all means, eat carbs. But in general,
it's definitely
diabetes is a carbohydrate metabolism problem.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. Well, because the problem is that you've been eating so many carbs and so much sugar that our cells are already full, and especially if we don't have the muscle to accept the glycogen, it's still trying to shove sugar in cells that are already full. So of course it produces more insulin to keep trying to shove that sugar in there, and it can't. So then the more insulin it produces, then the body gets worn out. So again, we're looking at it the wrong way. So when people describe what diabetes is, I'm like, oh God, okay, read this book. There's a really good one by Dr. Fung. I can't. No, Fung. F-U-N-G. Yeah,
the diabetes code.
Diabetes code and the obesity code. They're very good, and I like his description.
And the cancer code.
Right? Yeah, they're about because the first part. When I started working with coaches, and I used to say, well, tell me why I need to do that, and they're like, Melissa, just do it. Like I'm telling you to do it, just do it. I'm like, no. You don't understand. Number one, I am way more likely to follow through and do it if you tell me why. Tell me why I'm doing it, right? I think people need to understand that the reason why you do this is because of that. They got to know cause and effect. And if they don't know why they should be backing off sugars and carbs, they're not going to do it. They're just told, no, just take more insulin. Okay, but what does that do? So again, part of being healthy in this day and age is being your own best advocate, because nobody's going to do it for you. I've worked with enough clients and even doctors, like I said, that sometimes they'll come and tell me something. They'll be like, my doctor just said I need to eat less and move more. I'm like, get a new doctor, because that is not true. They're not giving you enough information, nor do they know themselves. So part of it is learning how your body truly works. You're going to have to educate yourself, because a lot of times the mainstream media is not going to do it. They're not going to tell us the truth, unfortunately.
Well, at least that doctor told him that it's a movement problem and a diet problem, and didn't just say, well, you just need more drugs.
True. Yeah.
Well, he probably did both.
He did both. That for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. You should do this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say I'm not against the drugs. I know that there are times and places for that, but especially when it comes to diabetes or something like, oh God, don't even get me started on Ozempic. But there's a time and a place for it, but it should be short term. It's supposed to be temporary. It's supposed to be helping you guide you back to the point where you can take care of yourself, know what the root of the problem is, and then work to solve that, not just keep putting Band-Aids on it. And that's pretty much what insulin is for the type 2 diabetic.
Yeah, for type 2 diabetics, right. And I mean, Jan and I are two pharmacists. We do not believe in drugs to treat long-term disease. Right. You don't lack metformin. You don't lack Ozempic if you have type 2 diabetes. It's a diet problem. It's a lifestyle problem. So that's what you need to fix. And it's not easy, but I also don't think that giving somebody a drug is going to increase their quality of life or increase their, I don't care what study says, or increase their longevity. I don't think so. I just, the reality is,
let's spend 2 seconds talking about studies. So I get that all the time. Even from doctors, they're like, well, the white papers say this. I'm like, no. You show me the white papers and who paid for that research, and then we'll have a conversation. Because, it's kind of like when they told us that fat makes us fat. Dietary fat does not necessarily equal adipose tissue automatically. So again, we got to make sure that we're talking about the right things, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah. I don't, especially after the last 4 years, I don't trust any study. I mean, come on.
I don't either.
And let's just think rationally here. It's like when, red meat is bad for us. Let's see. We've been eating it for thousands and thousands of years, and red meat is bad for us. I don't know about that.
Yes. I get that one all the time. And I have to remind people that when you eat red meat, you eat what you ate. And so if you are eating a cow that is full of grain, yes, that can be a problem. The other thing is you come down to the research. A lot of the research was based on people and their memory of what they ate. But also let's talk about the fact that when they eat red meat, they're probably eating it on a bun and eating some French fries with it. So again, what are we basing this on?
Right. That's why those studies, what else were they doing? I mean, you can't, those epidemiological studies are just, I think they're so unreliable, because there's just, everybody eats so different. So you can't say just red meat or, what else were they doing? So.
Yep, exactly. It's kind of like the bro science in the bodybuilding industry. You get the guys that are like, well, I did this because it worked for me, so you should do it. No, honey. it happened for you despite the fact that you were doing that. So, knowing how things really truly work, I just feel like people need to do a little more research. I know it's time consuming, and I know sometimes it's hard to find the correct information, but gosh, your lives depend on it. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's one thing we say too. And we challenge our patients, whether we're talking about hormones or whatever we're talking about. We say, don't just trust us. Do your own research.
Right.
Please.
Yes.
Do your own research. And if somebody tells you that their way is the only way, and don't do research, don't look at Google doctor or whatever they call it. It's like, go get a new doctor. If they don't want you to do your own research, don't go to them. Seriously.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that you guys, focus on hormones. I know how big of a role that plays. I'm on all bioidenticals at this point in my life. So, learning your body is super important, knowing what works best for you. I can tell when I'm off. I can tell when things aren't quite right, whether it's I'm not eating well or I'm not getting enough sleep. There's so much more that plays a role in health. And that's why when I do, a sit down goal assessment with somebody, they're like, why are you asking me all these crazy questions? I'm like, everything affects everything. So you got to know how all those things play a role in your life and your health and wellness. Absolutely.
So as we wind this podcast up, Melissa, tell us what you have a passion for.
I have a passion for people being happy and healthy. The thing I work predominantly with is nutrition, because I know it plays such a huge role. Lifting is great. Like, I love strength training, obviously. And it can do major things. I do teach my clients that nutrition determines size, exercise determines shape. So nutrition is going to play such a big role. If you're going to go to the gym, you want to make sure that you're fueling your body with the things that it needs in order to reach your goals, whether that's muscle or endurance. So knowing how things work best for you is really important. But I think the biggest thing that I'm passionate about is education and making sure that people understand how their body works, and continue to educate myself. I might know a lot, but I don't know everything, right? And I will tell people, I'm sorry, I don't know about that. But I have learned more about different diseases, working with people with everything from PCOS to IBS, because I didn't know enough at the time. And so I immersed myself in that education so that I could not necessarily tell them what to do. I'm not a doctor, but to help lead them to the right places to find that information and how to, correct it.
So what is the best way to get a hold of you? Here's your Instagram. Tell us about your Instagram page. What is that?
My Instagram page is probably where I post the most at this point. It's a lot of course, short pieces of information, education. Do not follow Melissa Fillmore because it got hacked about 2 years ago. So you're going to get a lot of weird stuff on there. But I do post a lot on this. I really enjoy the feedback and the conversations that I have on there. Also, Facebook is another big one for me, Fillmore Fitness, because I get a lot of communication. I enjoy not just educating people, but I like communicating directly with them, whether it's down below or whether it's direct messaging. I do have a YouTube channel under Fillmore Fitness. Some of my longer videos are there, including I call it my weekly Facebook Live, but it all gets posted on YouTube, called Meals with Melissa, where I do offer recipes and options for, that are healthier than the things people will normally eat. And people love it. Can you do something with this? And they're not complicated. I don't do complicated in my life at this point. You can also find me if you want more information about what I actually offer. You can go to my website, which is www.fillmorefitness.com.
Awesome. Well, you have helped us realize our goal today, Melissa, which is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health. So I really appreciate you doing that. And hopefully sometime you live in Tri-Cities.
I do. I live in Tri-Cities. I live in Pasco.
Right. So hopefully sometimes we can meet you in person. So
that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come down. We'll go to dinner or something. Or we'll cook you some dinner.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And do what?
And we'll cook you some dinner.
Okay, that'd be awesome. So we do stream, just speaking of our social media, we do stream live on Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We're working on Instagram. Instagram has a thing to do it. We just haven't figured it out yet. So we're going to try to do that over with a link to all of our streams. So if you could share it, Melissa, on all those forums, that would be great. And we appreciate you. Listeners and viewers.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. We usually have a midweek podcast. I think we still do. I don't know what it is yet because I'm on Hawaii time. But just stay tuned because you'll probably see something with us. Even if we don't have something scheduled, Janet and I will probably check in later this week. So thank you for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Thank you.